You are listening to Boise Fire Mission Strong podcast, where we share stories from the field, public safety knowledge, and give an inside look into the Boise Fire Department. Here's your host, Fire Chief Niemeyer.
Hello, Boise, and welcome to another episode of the Mission Strong podcast. Today, I am joined with two outstanding firefighters, Rachael Jonas and Dana Larrondo. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode.
Thanks for having us, Chief.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So we're going to focus a little bit on your careers, particularly as women in the fire service, right? That's what we're going to talk about a little bit. So, Dana, I'll start with you. Talk a little bit about what you did before you came to Boise Fire and what attracted you then to come into the fire department. What was it?
Well, Chief, what's funny is looking back to my childhood and everything, I never was exposed to the fire service. So it was never an idea that crossed my mind. I followed in my dad's footsteps after a year in college, and I joined the Navy. And then getting out of the Navy, I dabbled in personal training, ended up in the construction world. And for me, it was one of those things that it was not enough for me. And I had an individual who is a captain out in Nampa. He floated the idea of doing a ride-along.
Who was that?
It was Captain Frank Beauvais.
Nice.
Yeah, good old Frank. But he floated the idea one day, and I laughed at him. I completely blew him off. And through some thought process, some life changes, I finally took him up on that offer. And so after, my only experience as a child was I walked into a fire station when I was like 12 years old once, all the way to being in my mid-20s. I walked in that station, and it just felt, dare I say, like at home, like it felt right.
Something natural.
Yeah, and I felt called to kind of follow that path. So I went and got my EMT. I continued to do ride-alongs with Nampa just consistently.
Glad you came here.
I am too. I was very blessed to have Nampa Fire completely take me under their wing and allow me that exposure. Yeah. And then I tested for Boise, and I got it right off the bat. So I took one test, and been here since 2016. Nice. So
it's pretty fortunate.
Yes. Yeah. Very blessed.
So, Rachel, what about you? Prior to the fire service, what'd you do, and then what got you into this?
Yeah, kind of same as Dana. I didn't have nobody in my family's fire, and it was my dad, actually. I was a freshman in high school, and he was like reading the newspaper, because people did that back then.
Yeah, back when newspapers
back
were
in the day.
Okay.
Saw an ad for Ventura County Fire, and they were putting on a little junior fire academy out at the airport in Camarillo, where I'm from. And he's like, "You should do this. It'd be good for you." And I was like, whatever. So I did it, signed up. There was me and another gal and 40 boys. And
shocking.
Yeah, shocking, right? And so it was like 2 weeks. We got our hands-on CPR stuff. We got to rappel off buildings. We got to put out car fires. And I just loved it, and we tucked our shirts in and we ran around, and it was like the full deal. And I had a blast. And when I graduated, the two cadre came up to my parents, and they're like, she should really consider a career in this. And my dad and my mom were like, super proud and stuff. But I kind of just I don't know, talked myself out of it, took other paths. I went to college. After college, I joined the Air Force, did that whole thing. I was active duty, switched over to the Air National Guard, and then went back to school for nursing. And then in 2020, I deployed, and I don't know why, I'm always friends with fire people, but I made friends with all the fire guys out there, and they're like, "You were meant to do this, just do it." And I was like, all right. I put all my eggs in one basket, like they say not to, dropped out of nursing school, got my EMT, applied for Boise, and, I got it on my first try.
What the heck?
I know.
Y'all are smarter than the average.
I hate telling people that. I hate telling people that. They're like, "What? Your first try?" Yeah. But so I feel lucky and blessed.
Go back to after you did the Explorer program or whatever in Ventura, right? I'm guessing Chief Roper was probably the fire chief at the time.
I can't remember.
You were doing that. You said that you went a different path where you couldn't convince yourself to do it.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what you said.
Just talked myself out of it.
Talked yourself out of it.
I don't know.
What was it?
As everything, I guess you're smaller than them, maybe you're not as strong as them, and I kind of let the negative thoughts kind of take over. And then when I was deployed, and I was like, you know what, screw that, man. I am tough enough, I am strong enough, I can do this, I'm just as capable as them, and this job allows for differences every day. Like no one day is the
Right.
same, and
Right.
I love that kind of work environment. And I grew up an athlete, and that's kind of, it feels like a family. It feels kind of like a sports team, you know.
Yeah.
So kind of just gravitated towards that sort of career, and yeah.
Yeah, so not unlike most stories, right? Most people come to us because it came out of the military and they like that camaraderie. They were very sports minded and were a part of teams. They're adventurous. You know, it's interesting. We had a recruit academy. I think it was the last one. And as we went around the room day one just to get to know them, there was like 80% of them were musicians, which I thought, wow, this is unique. Like we don't see this a lot. So, but I think it tells the story of why do people want to come work for us? What is it about the things we do that attracts everyone, right? The door's open for everyone to come and work for us if you want to be a part of a team and do all that. So cool stories. I can't believe you guys both passed on your first time though. That's pretty
We're
impressive.
awesome.
We got the smart group here today.
That's what I'm talking about.
So we're going to get into smart conversations. So what barriers, as you were coming through, and I'll go back to you, Dana, to start with, you know, what barriers did you face coming into the fire service? Obviously, our fire department didn't have a lot of women working for the fire department, right? Still don't, as compared to how many men we have. But, and I have a very unique perspective. I tell this story all the time. I got to watch my wife come through a public safety career as well and kind of see the unique struggles from even something as simple as a uniform or how things fit. But what struggles did you face, if any, or what did you have to overcome?
I was thinking about this earlier. Coming into our recruit academy was the mechanics of the body, right? So most of our cadre, because we currently, when I came on, we only had one female on the front line.
Right.
So most our cadre were men, and it was hard for many of them to grasp that our upper body strength is not equivalent to that of a man naturally, right? We
Right.
can obviously get there,
Right.
but our powerhouse is in our hips. And so things like drags and carries, so picking up a downed firefighter or a patient and dragging them out in full gear, we're not oxes.
Right.
You know, we have to think differently on how to use the body mechanics to pick up people. It was hard to kind of get that across to some people as we're learning to pick them up. Like, we're more than capable to do it. It just takes a little bit of creativity to be able to understand what part of the body we need to recruit from versus just picking them up with our bicep strength, 200 pounds, and just dragging them 30, 40, 50 feet. We can do it, but it's a one and done thing. You know, we save that for the actual emergency scene, not in the training. So I think, you know, that was one of the first things that I noticed was just not being able to understand body mechanics as a whole. And I think going forward as I got the luck of being able to do our academy twice due to injury. And so even just in a year, I was able...
I love that word. You're a lucky gal.
Luck, yes. You know, even in the course of a year, being able to see just that growth in the mindset of understanding that, okay, the strength is there, but we're recruiting it differently. And then going through the probationary process, that first year following your recruit academy, you know, I was lucky enough to have strong women going ahead of me and be able to, you know, build bridges.
Right.
And so I felt very blessed to be able to kind of continue to reinforce those bridges. But there definitely are always going to be people that just don't like you. It doesn't matter if you're a male, female, what your background is. But I used that as an advantage. So I definitely had crew members that didn't want me on their crews. And I use it as an advantage to continue to push myself, to prove myself as a firefighter who happened to be female.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Earn the respect and prove that I was competent and confident and capable of doing the job. And that down the road, I can prove that being a female is such a fantastic asset to have in this industry.
Yes.
And it's very unique. But my main goal early on was just to prove myself as a firefighter and then let the rest do the talking for me.
Love it. Rachel, what about you?
What Dana said, there's just not a lot of women, right? And the cadre haven't really had to teach specifics to women. Like something as simple as like a mask up, right? Like they teach, you just kind of flick it over your head, but like we got hair, you know? So when you do that, it just pulls all your hair forward. So I don't mask up like that. Like I have to take my time, slip it over the back rather than just flick it, you know? Like little basics like that. Like I sleep with my hair down at the station, right? So on the way, like when the bells go off, we got to walk and put our hair up
Yeah.
and do all the things. Just like little tiny, you know what I
Right,
mean? Like
yeah.
little
Little
tiny
things.
things that
Yep.
people don't really think that you're gonna go through. That you kind of just have to teach yourself. But yeah, same things. Like I'm small, I'm 5'6", I weigh 130 maybe. And a lot of things in the fire service are heavy, which again, we are very capable of doing all the
Right.
same things. And I think that's the importance of it, right? Like nobody really cares if you're male or female. It's just, can you do the job? And
Yeah,
and that's what I
exactly.
wanted to do, was just prove that I am a smaller person, but I am just as capable. I am physically as strong. I am mentally as strong, and I can do the job, right? So that's how I kind of carried myself through academy. I just wanted to prove that
Persevered.
just
Yeah.
persevere. I can be just as good. I just have to do it a little differently, right?
Right.
Like we don't, or me specifically, I don't have the brute strength of a 6'2", 250 person, right?
Right.
I'm just smaller, so I rely a lot on like technique.
Technique.
Like I have to
Absolutely.
perfect my technique
Yeah.
so that I don't blow my back out, so
Totally.
that
Which
I
means
don't
you probably
blow my
won't get
shoulder.
injured, but the
Right. You know, they just
Maybe.
kind of muscle through
That's
everything,
right.
which is awesome. But you
Yeah.
know, like even ways of throwing a ladder, like they teach the kind of the trombone method, but I'm smaller and I do, you know, a push-pull method to the ladder.
Right.
So, and I was down working, helping out with the Ignite camp, which I know we're going to be talking about later, but a lot of the girls that are cycling through, I'm kind of teaching them ways that they can carry that forward in case they don't get that
Yep.
if they ever come through our academy, right?
Love it.
Because there are ways to do things that are beneficial to our body types and our body styles. And I just want to let, you know, all the women who are coming up through the fire service after me know that it's possible. And
You
there
can
are
do
other
it.
ways
Totally.
Totally
to do
doable.
things, you know?
Yeah.
And we're just as capable, we're just as strong.
I can't remember if it was you, I think it was, that challenged me. We were at the last Ignite boot camp.
Oh man.
And I think,
Are you sure it was
I-
Casey?
no, it wasn't Casey. I know when she flips me crap. I think I asked the question, can a woman ever be a fire chief? I think I asked that question. I'm pretty sure it was you. Maybe I'm mixing this up.
I don't know, but I think they can.
But if it was you, you yelled out, "That's the wrong way to ask the question, Chief." And I thought, okay, this is cool. Somebody calling me out. I like it.
I don't know if it was me, but it sounds
Sounds
Maybe
like
it
you.
was, but it sounds like you. And the question was reframed to, why can't a woman be a fire chief? So, you know, we hear all the time, not all the time, but we do certainly when we engage different groups, can a girl, can a woman, can a young woman be a fire chief, be a firefighter? Well, the question is, why can't you? Right? And this is what we're talking about here, is that I think the fire service, in my opinion, we're slowly getting better, right? We don't evolve quickly. We evolve slowly over time in the fire service because we're organically not accustomed to change and don't like it and all that. But what I've seen is we are now more focused on the objective that has to be met as opposed to the very specific way that you have to meet the objective, right?
Yep.
I think that's what we're talking about. We may teach a ladder raise one way, but for you, you were able to accomplish that task this way.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yep.
And I think that's the change in the old guard to the new guard, is leaders saying that's okay.
Yep.
Because all we got to do is accomplish the objective, right? And there's several ways to get there.
100%.
Were you ever told you can't do this?
Yes.
Yeah?
I was not told that I couldn't do this, but I was told it might be a lot harder for me,
Yeah.
and it would probably take me. I mean, when I was first applying for the job, everyone was like, "Oh, it's gonna take you, 8 to 10 years on average," which is
Right.
average, right?
Right.
But I, got it on the first try, and
Yeah.
I feel so lucky and just so blessed. I don't know what I did to make me stand out, but I was faced with like, oh, maybe it's not possible, maybe it isn't,
Right.
But I do have a lot of good people in my corner that have pushed me in this direction.
So a good support system.
Yeah.
That whenever you got told you can't,
Right.
obviously you did,
Just do it anyway.
so you persevered.
Yeah.
Right?
And I would say the same thing. Like I was told I couldn't do it in my probie process. I had an individual in a crew who, if you can't do this, you shouldn't be here. Skill that was new, was unique. I was trying to figure out the mechanics behind it.
Right.
And I was, it's like, you can't be here, and everything, even reflected on like, we get those weekly probie reports.
Yeah.
It's like unsatisfactory, can't do the job type reflection. And it was, I took that as again, motivation.
Motivation.
It was just like,
Yeah, watch me.
yeah, and I went to somebody that I respected
Yeah.
and knew that could help me through that, who respected me and what I was doing. And I asked for their help, and they took me under their wing, and we annihilated that skill, and I was able to show it back up the next day at work and prove that person wrong.
Right. Right.
So I think having people in your corner is,
it's huge.
It's huge.
So you both had champions at some. We all do.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it doesn't matter gender, doesn't matter. We all have champions that help us get to wherever we're going. So you both had champions throughout your time in Recruit Academy, on probation.
To this day,
Yeah.
you know, I think you have to have champions early on to when things are tough, and you know, in the testing process and the interview process and the physical side of things and the mental side of things. Getting hired is such a mental game. Once you're in the game, it's even more of a strategic game. And you're tested physically, emotionally, mentally, everything. And you doubt yourself. And you need those people throughout every step in your career, from before it even starts until the very end and beyond, to support you through it. And it doesn't matter, you know, male or female. But I think what's unique on being female is like, when you get those champions that are in your corner, like you hold on to them and you you take those relationships and you make them stronger, because those people, you know, once they're there, you lean on them for everything, because it doesn't get easier, you know, especially, you know, if you want to make this the full career up until retirement, 20 plus years, you have good and bad days, and you need to be able to lean on your corner on those bad days and be able to celebrate with them on those good days.
So for women out there that might be listening, or even women in our community, and certainly we're trying to raise awareness through Ignite and some other things, that yes, this job is for everyone. Don't get locked into the mindset of I can't do that job, or I wouldn't be accepted in the job. But we have work to do in the fire service. There's certainly conversations in my circles about how do we raise awareness so that we're opening the door freely to more people. So where is the work that we still need to do from your perspectives now? Somebody, you both come into the fire service, you're cemented into our fire department. Where's the work we need to do?
I think, I don't know, recruitment. And I know we're kind of upping our recruitment. I joined the little recruitment list that Ashley's doing and stuff. I think just getting our name out there and like, you know, talking about it and saying what it's about. I don't know if I never just went to career fairs, but like even growing up, going through high school and college, I never saw a fire department come in and be like, hey, work for us, you know, this is why you should work for us. Whether that be trying to get more women or just people on our department in general, I think we just kind of need to get our name out there and tell people what we do. We've also boosted our social media a lot since Lindsay came on, and I think our social media has kind of taken off, and that's super important, right? If you don't, the world is, you know, electronics. So I think having a good social media platform and putting together videos of like live fire training or just day-to-day ride-alongs, that gets people fired up to kind of join, and it shows people what we do on a day-to-day basis. So I'm not a huge fan of like social media and all that stuff, you know, there's pros and cons to it, but for the fire service especially, I think it's super important getting our name out there.
Yeah, and most people see us on like their worst day, right? So when we show up, there are definitely times when it's like the Santa Claus and M&M commercial where like it does exist. They do exist. I've definitely had that interaction, but a lot of times they don't know who we are, what we are. It doesn't matter. The entire, you know, scene is an emergency, and they're not focused on, you know, if it's a man or a woman. You know, getting out there and doing PR type events we do the National Night Out. You know, I get the luxury of being in our prevention division, and so I get to go and interact with business owners and managers on a daily basis. And so I think just having the uniform on and the face and being able to show that, I am a female, I am a firefighter, like it is possible. And then in addition to the fact that like we're on social media, it's 2024, like if you're not on it, you're nothing. And you look back to, you know, when I was 12 years old, and it's like I never saw firefighters unless they're driving by lights and sirens to go to a fire. You know, you walk into one station when you're 12 years old doing a station tour, and they're on a call, so you sat in their recliners, you thought it was the coolest thing ever, and you left, so you never even saw them. There's no exposure. So I think just exposure in general, social media, PR events, getting out there to do, getting to know your area as a firefighter, I think is, you know, one of the best ways to do it, just to give exposure to we do exist.
That's why this Ignite Bootcamp is amazing, right? Because we have two different groups of women, and we have boys that come through, you know, different age groups, and just implanting in their heads, especially on the women's side, that like you can do this, you are strong, and just empowering them from the time that they're a little bit younger, and like 16, 17-year-olds, they're pretty vulnerable, right? And for women who are already doing the job, they're gonna look up to us and be like, wow, like she can do that. I can do that.
Role model.
You know, and like I never really had that. Like I have role models in my family, but none of them are, you know, in the fire service. And you can tell somebody what you do, but they don't really understand it, right?
Super
so
hard.
just getting the girls, especially specifically the women, just early on, and just letting them know that they can do this job and they're capable early, and just stating our presence, right? And just empowering them to want to do it too.
Yep.
But
Love it. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but culture of an organization is very important too.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
That are you an organization that is free from harassment, that treats everyone well, that pushes everyone to succeed, not just based on gender or race, or are you the cool group or the non-cool group? I think culture is a big deal. Would you guys agree with that?
Totally.
100%.
Culture's huge.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think we have a good culture here.
Yeah.
I mean, I know in the past, I've only been on just over 3 years now. I know in the past there's probably some good old boys, you know, that maybe not to your face, but behind your back, whatever the case may be.
It's the words that are spoken or unspoken.
There's always
right?
going to be people that don't believe that women belong in the fire service or just being a first responder in general. But I will say, in my experience, I haven't really encountered that. I did on probation, you know, be fit with somebody.
Yeah.
And they were an outlier. A lot of people were like, don't worry about that person.
Yeah.
So that was like a one-off for me. And it did kind of fuel me. I'm like, why doesn't this person like me? Like, what is it? You know, I haven't done anything wrong. I do things differently than this person. But I was like, you know what? No, I'm not letting that person get in my head. And so I just overcome. But yeah, I don't think that we have a bad culture here. I think me personally, I put a lot of pressure on myself because there aren't a lot of females in the fire service. So I don't want to mess up and have someone be like, oh, well, she messed up because she's a female,
Let me stop you there. You guys both feel that little bit of pressure that
I would say
Yeah.
so.
oh,
I
I
mean,
gotta
even
be
coming
even
pressure to
better.
perform.
I would even say coming into this conversation is, you know, I want to represent females in the fire service and females in this department well.
Right.
You know, every day it's in the back of my mind is to be able to show up to represent not only the fire service in general, but females in the fire service in a positive light. I don't want to mess that up. Like there has been a significant amount of change over the years, and change takes time.
It
it's
does.
slow. It's arduous.
Very
fire
slow.
service, it's even slower and more arduous. So we've had fantastic women come ahead of us and forge that pathway. And I want to be able to continue to reinforce that. And everything I do, it's in the forefront of my mind. You know? And I worry about it at times.
Which adds even more pressure to
Yes.
you than
And
say,
it's not coming
for me.
It's an intrinsic
It's not
thing.
coming from anybody.
Yeah, no.
Because, like,
No, I get it.
everybody has been amazing. Like,
Right.
coming up through probation and 3 years in, like, I have had great people on the department in my corner, men, women, whatever. But yeah, it's totally like an internal, like,
You feel
I
it.
don't want to let these people down. I don't want to let those people that I'm working with at the Ignite Bootcamp down because I didn't do, you know, a skill. I don't want them to think that they can't do that because I didn't do it. So it's always like, I gotta be awesome, you know. But nobody else is thinking that, just us. You know what I mean?
You are
Yes,
awesome.
you are awesome too.
Thanks.
But I think you both are paying it forward, though, and that's the goal in a lot of this, is how do we pay it forward to the next generation to inspire men and women, in this case of Ignite, for the most part women, come through the door, right? Come through the door. And I think in that aspect, you're fulfilling your own pressures in that way because you're both involved and you're both promoting you too can do it. And I think that's the right place to be, is continuing to open the doors to show, I've done it, you can do it, this is for everyone.
100%.
So, what advice would you have, again, that young woman, that woman in our community, maybe a minority status that's in our community that says, can I? What advice would you have to get there?
Well, I think what Kasey has started and done for our department's amazing. The Ignite Bootcamp is incredible. I mean, I told you I went through kind of a similar thing, but this is like way more advanced than what I did. Like, we weren't throwing ladders, we weren't really pulling hose.
Right.
Like, these girls are crushing it. Like, they are learning all the basic fundamentals. So when they do get in the fire service, they're already one step ahead of me personally, because I didn't have any of that experience. But like, I just want women, people in general, but you know, we are talking more so about women, in the fire service, but I just want them to know that it's possible and
Yeah.
to quit with the negative thoughts and to
Quit doubting.
just see what you can do, right? You might fail, you might not get on your first try.
Yeah, for our listeners, go
Yeah.
take tests. Like you're gonna
You
have to
might
probably take
take
a
it
few
a
of
couple
them.
times. I know plenty of people who have tested 10 plus
Yeah.
times, but if
Yeah.
this is where you want to be, specifically Boise, then just keep going,
Yeah.
right? Because you're gonna face adversity, you're gonna face setbacks, you're gonna fail tests,
Right.
you're gonna fail, you're gonna mess up on probation, you're gonna mess up
Yeah.
on a skill, and on the fire ground, everybody makes mistakes on the fire ground,
Everybody
right?
does.
All the time, but
And
it's what
everybody
you
will
do.
fail.
Totally,
Too, right?
everybody's
This is not a
failed.
gender thing.
It's not
No.
just
Yeah.
it's just male, female, whoever.
Yeah.
Everybody makes mistakes, but I just want to let the women know that they use those mistakes and move forward and ensure that they don't happen again or they grow from those.
Yep.
And just to have confidence, self-confidence. It goes
Yeah.
a long way, and to carry yourself and keep your chin up and held high, you know, because
Yeah.
you are just as capable of doing this job as anyone else, you know.
And then look at failure as a challenge,
Yeah.
not an obstacle.
Yeah, I think failure for sure is, it's not necessarily what you failed at, it's how you
Right.
react and respond from that
Yes.
failure.
Always
Totally.
is.
And that's, for me, it's the same thing as like, just keep going.
Yeah.
But when you think you have enough weight on your barbell and you're training for this job, put another 5 pounds on it.
Right.
When you think you've ran enough, run another half mile. It's never give up, always push harder.
Yeah.
It's not to prove anything to anybody except for yourself that you can. And if you can create that your own intrinsic motivation to just push a little bit harder, when push comes to shove, when it is that you're failing that written and you need to push harder for the next time, like
Yep.
you already have that, you've got that fire burning inside of you. Push a little bit more and it's worth it.
Mhm.
It's okay if you fail. Tomorrow will
Totally.
show up
Yeah.
and you just try again.
Yeah.
And if you can start that early and you have that good mental strength, it'll take you so far in the fire service because every day is a new challenge.
All the time.
We're faced with new things that you never even thought was possible in a fireground scene, an emergency scene, and you've got to MacGyver that. And you have to push harder. You can't just say, oh, I don't know what to do. I haven't trained this way. I'm just going to give
Right.
up. You have
Right.
to be able to push that, that thought process a little bit farther, use your imagination a little bit more, lean on your resources a little bit more, and then you come up with a solution. So start that early and push yourself just
Totally.
a little bit more, and it will be worth it in the end.
I also don't think our department's looking for perfect people.
No.
I think our department's just looking for people who give a crap about the job, like who just want to be here.
Yes.
I mean,
Wanna do good.
I've failed multiple tests, Pro B, driver, like
Yeah.
you use that and then you just move forward.
Right.
We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for people who want to be here, who show up every day, who have a passion
Wanna
for
do
the
a good
job,
job.
who
Yep.
want to make a difference in the community, and who actually
Totally.
care about the patients that they're taking care of, right?
Yeah.
Like, I try to take care of everybody as if they're either my best friend or like a family member, because one day that's going to be me,
Yeah.
and I want moving forward people to take care of us the same way that we take care of them. And
So we're continuing on with our podcast, and now we have Kasey Hochmuht. And Kasey, I'm going to ask you first about how did you get into the fire service? Then we're really going to focus on the Ignite Bootcamp and what we're doing there. So what was your pathway into the fire service?
My dad was a smoke jumper.
Okay.
And so I grew up in the wildland community, and about 2 days after I graduated high school, I stepped into my first hand crew and didn't realize how much I was gonna like it, and I loved it. And on and off for 16 years, I did wildland during the summer. I hot-shotted primarily, and then I got to rappel out of helicopters, which was
Nice.
awesome. And,
Yeah. Junkie.
yeah,
Adrenaline
total
junkie.
adrenaline
Yeah.
junkie. Yeah. And I was really fortunate to have those opportunities and to do that. And but even at that point, structure was not on my mind. I took some time in the off season and started going to nursing school. And my plan was to become a nurse and have a house with a picket fence and babies and dogs and all that stuff. And as life has a tendency to do, I had a wrench thrown into my plans, and I wasn't liking where I was living. A friend from Wildland reached out to me and said, "Hey, Boise Fire's hiring. I know you're not happy where you are. Why don't you come back home and apply?" And I was like, "Well, okay." I dropped out of nursing school. Plan B was that I would just enroll in nursing school here in Boise, and but I applied and got hired the first time I applied. So I was really fortunate. And
I'm learning a lot here. People take tests one time and evidently pass. And then I'm learning we just maybe sometimes drop out of nursing school and
we drop
take
out
on
of
a fire
nursing school.
job.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think it fit me a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been with the department almost 8 years, and it is the best job in the world. And it's created a family around me that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I feel very fortunate to be here every day. I get to come to work. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
So let's talk a little bit of Ignite. When I got here a little over 3.5 years ago, and I remember our very first conversation, and it was really about women in fire, right? The conference was going on in Spokane, and then we started talking about, man, wouldn't it be cool if we could host that here? And then it turned into, well, let's do something locally, right? So, and you have led that effort, right? You've been the champion of that effort. Talk about what drove your passion to do it, and what have you seen as the benefit of doing it?
Starting off in 2019, I partnered with the Girl Scouts of Silver Sage and did a similar program where they were able to come out for, I want to say 4 or 5 hours and kind of do like a fire ops type program.
Yeah.
And we weren't quite sure how we were going to make it work. And then it went off well. We had decent turnout, and 2020 came, and obviously nothing happened that year. And I think during our first conversation, it was about women in fire. Which terrified me, the thought of going and hanging out with a bunch of women for 4 days. I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But also, I had made a comment about recruitment. I was like, we could do better recruiting, because we used to have this radio ad that was atrocious and all about, hey, ladies, do you feel like you're strong enough? And it just felt patronizing and unnecessary. And you're like, well, do better. Show me what we should be doing, if you think you can do something better, then do it, and come up with a plan. And so I had an idea in the back of my mind, went to the Women in Fire conference, and that kind of, and then that leadership conference, that leadership symposium that I was able to go to, and that ignited the fire, that flame that I needed to like push me forward and create this program that would not only show women what they are capable of, but expose them to what we do in the fire service and let them make that decision whether or not it's for them. Because just as much as I want women to know that they are capable and that they should totally come and do this job, I want them to also experience it and say, oh, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe this was not what I thought it was going to be. And this program creates that opportunity, and it gives them the ability to come out and do really, really hard things, but have a good time and have a supportive cadre around them that's willing to take the time to teach them and encourage them, and also make relationships that are lasting. I still have women and girls reach out to me for information. Hey, can you help me with this application? And I may not be able to help them with it, but we have such a great community of female firefighters that I can be like, hey, I'm not your person, but here, I've got so-and-so's information. They said it's great for you to reach out to them.
And it's taken off. I remember the first year, it was kind of a skeleton agenda, but it was great. And we saw a couple of those graduates, I think, go on to the fire service. This last one we saw, and to your point, maybe people go through it, men or women, young boys, young girls, and they say either, yes, that's a pathway I see for myself, or they say, no, right, I want to do something different. But we are starting to see a lot of those graduates now applying for and getting hired in fire departments in the Valley, right?
Yeah,
cool.
We're super fortunate. Not only do they have the ability to reach out to us, but all of the instructors are volunteers from other departments and from Boise Fire Department. So it's not just Boise Fire Department putting this program on. These are firefighters from all over Idaho and Oregon coming in and putting on this incredible program. And so now you have them recruiting for their own departments.
So Ignite, we still host it, but I think you have a vision of this broader. From a statewide perspective. Talk about that a little bit, because this is super cool stuff.
Well, it's a great program. And like I said, we've got volunteers from all over Idaho and Oregon coming to help with these programs. Well, their own departments are looking to recruit as well. And so this is an opportunity for them to say, hey, I want to run an Ignite Bootcamp at my department. Yeah. Pocatello would be a great location. McCall has talked about wanting to do one. We've talked about how great it would be to see one in Coeur d'Alene, in Lewiston. Just get this a little bit, maybe a little broader range, because it is hard for someone to take time off out of their busy schedule and come all the way down to Boise from Coeur d'Alene, Lewiston, all the way over from Pocatello for a 2-day camp. It's a great opportunity and it's great exposure, but that's a lot of time to take out. And we want this to be something that is attainable to anyone, regardless of where they live and their financial situation, which is why we make it free.
Right.
We want this to be something that someone can participate in and make a decision based on that experience, whether or not this is a career they want to pursue.
Where do you see our program going?
I really like where it is right now. Right now it's manageable, and I like that. I think we've got a good system worked out. We've got incredible volunteers, and as our participants are getting jobs at other departments, that gives us more cadre members, and just a stronger group of people to learn from. And I think that is what I envisioned for the program. And so seeing what it's doing right now and seeing the way it's kind of got a life of its own, and we have grown the boot camp size, but we're also at our max right now. I think growing it anymore would be detrimental to the program, because I don't think we would be able to give the experience that we have right now. But where I would like to see it grow is going to other departments and seeing them be able to host something like this and supporting them along the way. You know, we've figured out a formula that works for us, and if that's what they're interested in, we would love to provide that formula for them and the support that they need moving forward to have their own program.
It's gained a lot of attention around the state. You and I talked a little bit about this, but I get calls from Lewiston, Chief, Post Falls. It's making its way, and people are hearing about it, and they're very excited about it. And I think that's partly because we did open the doors early on to Idaho Falls, to Pocatello, to McCall, to Caldwell, Nampa, and then you mentioned Oregon, and I think that has generated a ton of interest. You see these programs a lot in the fire service, but they kind of start and then they end, they die off. I think what you have built and what the team has built is very sustainable. I really do.
Yeah, and I think we also keep it, we're not inviting in big speakers to talk. We're not bringing in, you know, some flashy star on the side of the road. Like, we are keeping it us. We want it to be a comfortable, safe space for people to learn and to make mistakes, but to learn from those mistakes and succeed in spite of them. I know you guys talked about failures earlier. Like, one of the questions I had during my interview, and it stuck with me, they're like, tell us about a time you failed. And, you know, you take the time to formulate your answer. And I was like, I've never failed. And I saw the look on their eyes, like the glint of like, and she's not getting a job. And I was like, I've never failed. I was like, I've made so many mistakes in my life.
Yeah.
But I have learned lessons from every single one of them. And as long as I keep learning from my mistakes, I consider it a success.
Ooh, good answer.
So I think I'm using that same formula with Ignite. You know, we've made mistakes along the way, but we keep learning from them and we keep progressing. And last year, adding in the young men's program, I was not happy about that. Like, that got thrown in my lap and I was like, nope, don't want to do it. Never been a young man, don't know what it's like being a young man in the fire service. Why would I want to put this program on? It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was incredible. We had a lot of the same female cadre members instructing that program, and then brought in some male volunteers that we had from other departments. Middleton sent some volunteers. Last year we had volunteers from Nampa and Meridian and some guys from our department, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And it went really well. And not only were they learning from these men that are in the fire service, but they were learning from women in the fire service. And I think that really opened their eyes. But I also think that there was an immense amount of respect for this cadre. And I loved seeing that, because it just sets us up and all of our departments up for success moving on.
And some of the graduates have now come back to help teach, right? Didn't I see that?
Yeah. And so one of the things that I have done since the first year we did it, I was like, okay, you did the women's program. You are helping out with the young women's program. And we've got young women from last year that are going to participate in the women's one this year. And we just kind of utilize those resources and allow them to then take those skills that they learned and pass those on and talk about how hard this was, and they understand your struggle, but if you do it just a little bit differently, like, you can now push through this, or you can succeed, or hey, maybe try this, like I tried it and it worked, or don't do that, like I tried it and it was catastrophic and it wasn't a good idea. So it's really great being able to bring in those participants and have them then see it from the backside and see what it's like to be an instructor and to be cadre and to help out and get hands-on with those participants.
Do you think also for them it's just a growth in their own professional career to get that confidence of even teaching?
Absolutely.
We all know, I mean, you learn and then someday you have to teach. And
Absolutely.
I remember that first time I had to teach something, I thought, oh my God, I'm so nervous, I'm going to fail. And I think it's just allowing them career growth as well, professional growth.
Yeah,
Love
and when I was setting up the very first boot camp, you know, I'm reaching out to people, and I would have women in, this is very common with women, especially in predominantly male professions. I was like, I want you to like pick out what you want to teach, and they're like, I'm not really an expert at anything. I was like, to these participants, you are an expert. You take your experiences and you pass it on to them, and if you're lucky, it's going to make you even better.
Yeah.
And I was like, we are the experts, regardless of how long we've been in the fire service, regardless of whether or not we're, you know, this is the skill that we just own every time we do it. I think that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You are the expert.
To them, you're the expert.
To them, you are the expert. And how great is it that you now have an opportunity to teach someone else how to do this?
Very cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
What else from Ignite that, or even recruiting, or even I'll ask you the same question to Rachael and Dana. How do we continue to encourage young women to look at this profession as a profession that could be for them?
I mean, we've got a couple ways in my mind. These Ignite type programs are awesome, and encouraging people. I was never the type of person that would walk up to somebody and introduce myself and be like, you should be a firefighter. Have you ever considered it?
Right.
But when I met my husband, he would carry around recruitment cards. And he would walk up to random people and be like, hey, have you ever considered being a police officer? And I was like, you can't just go talk to strange people. And he goes, it makes them feel good when you encourage them to do something that is hard. And he goes, you don't have to like fawn over them, but introduce yourself and be like, hey, have you considered a career in the fire service? And over the years, it's gotten easier and easier for me to have those conversations. So just introducing myself and being like, hey, have you considered this? Like, it could be a good career choice for you. Please consider it. You know, my name's Kasey. I have these Ignite Bootcamps. Please come and participate in one. I just gave a talk at a middle school last week, and between the 4 classes that I talked to, you know, we had young women in those classes that reached out afterward that were like, okay, tell me about these boot camps. I had 2 teachers reach out, and they were like, I think I might want to come and do the Ignite Bootcamp, because this is something I always thought I wanted to do, but I chose the career that was safe.
Yeah.
You know, the one that I was encouraged to do. I was encouraged to be a teacher. Like, that's a really great career choice for a female. But that is actually kind of where I wanted to be. And so, yeah, we might have a couple of the teachers come and participate in our boot camps. So the outreach that we're doing right now, that recruitment committee that's been formed, going out to career fairs, being out in the public, as much as I hate doing like PR events or things like this, it's important. And it's, you know, like Rachael talked about, utilizing social media. I am not good at it, but I am grateful for people like Lindsay that are really good at it and that make us look good and that encourage people to see what we do and the rewards that we gain by doing it.
So, Female Firefighters of Idaho recently started as a nonprofit?
We aren't a nonprofit right now. I actually have a meeting tomorrow night to kind of talk about what it's going to take for us to move in that direction. So, Female Firefighters of Idaho was created after the first boot camp as a support network. So it was just a Facebook group where participants could go, anybody that was interested in being in the fire service as a female, within the state of Idaho, but honestly, we've got people from Oklahoma, Idaho, Washington in there. So there's not only firefighters in there, we've got folks from Ada County paramedics and other EMS programs. We have some women from Boise Police and other law enforcement programs that are participating in it. And it's one thing, we get together and we hang out and we see what everybody's up to and see what the challenges are at each person's within their career and the path that they've chosen, or within their departments, or how can we help, or how do we address this. I've had people reach out and say, hey, I'm dealing with this adversity within my department. Like, I really just need some advice on this. And either, you know, they'll message me and we'll deal with it that way, or if they want to put it out into the group as a discussion, like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. How can I navigate this? We've had people reach out and be like, hey, I need help on the math portion of the test. Like, who's good at math and can we meet? I'm getting ready for my interview. Can we do some mock interviews? I want to apply to this department. Who here is from that department and can help me understand what I need to do to get prepared for even applying for this career? Because different departments operate differently. You know, NAMPA has an expectation that you integrate within their crews before you even apply, and you're hanging out and you're doing station visits and you're doing ride-alongs and you're doing all this stuff, whereas other departments like ours is not really an expectation.
Right.
So understanding what the department expects
Mm-hmm.
is fantastic, but also just having people to lean on when you have a question, and a safe space to have those discussions. You know, when people are asking questions about pregnancy within the fire service, about menstruation in the fire service, like how are you dealing with these different things, or dealing with, we've had questions about sexual assault pop up, and it's a safe space that they can have these discussions and these conversations, and have a group of people that have potentially experienced it, and understand how they navigated it, right, wrong, or otherwise. Like, this is how I dealt with it, or this is what it was like when I dealt with it, and be prepared for this because it's going to be hard. So I think having that group form was helpful. And since then, because I'm not good at social media, we've had another person kind of take on that role in social media. But what else has happened is PFFI has allowed us to kind of ride on their nonprofit status to collect funds to buy smaller boots, to help pay for travel, hotel for our volunteers when they don't belong to a department that's going to pay for that. And so it's given us an opportunity to raise some funds for things like that. We've got cool swag and stickers and all that, which is great to promote our program. But in the end, we're there as a support system for women that are interested in a career in the fire service, regardless of where that is or what that looks like, and whatever support we can give them.
Do you see the future of like a conference, a state? We have PFFI, right? We have the convention. But I think Women in Fire, that organization that you know I work with, they did that for a reason, because they felt like the FDICs of the world, those conference, wasn't really hitting the mark, right?
And we applied to have the Women in Fire conference here, which I think would be fantastic, and we should try again. The Women's Leadership Symposium is awesome. This year it was in Gilbert. What was it, 2 years ago? It was down in Salt Lake. It was awesome. I really appreciated that. That symposium is what gave me the confidence I needed to move forward with Ignite. I gained a lot of support, a lot of ideas, and a lot of encouragement from just those 2 days that I spent down in Salt Lake. And even the women that went to the one in Gilbert, I heard fantastic things, and pretty much on the same line. Like, it just encouraged me to do more, be better, but also not to expect people to live through the hardships that I had to go through. You know, encourage them, bring them up, and make changes that we need to make so that people don't have to have those hard experiences that we had.
Something we all should strive for.
Absolutely.
Getting rid of those bad experiences.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No, I appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Boise, for tuning in. We hope you join us next month for another exciting episode of the Mission Strong podcast.